Welcome to The Lens, hosted by Catalysis, where we get a glimpse inside healthcare organizations that are transforming to a culture of improvement to deliver continually higher value outcomes for patients, staff, and communities. Visit createvalue.org/The Lens for more information about Catalysis.
Welcome back to The Lens. I'm your host, Peter Mariahazi. Today, I will be talking with John Toussaint, co-author of Becoming the Change and thought leader in healthcare improvement. We will focus our discussion on using an A3 for personal development at the leadership level. Before we dive in, I want to share a few brief announcements. First, the theme of our annual summit is Becoming the Change. This year, the summit is virtual, allowing you to join from anywhere. Join fellow lean practitioners on June 23rd and 24th to learn, share, connect, and reflect as we create exchange together. Also, Catalysis has recently launched the Catalysis Academy, an online learning experience designed to help your organization build a consistent approach to organizational excellence. Some courses in the Catalysis Academy are also approved for continuing education credits. You can find more information about the summit and the Catalysis Academy at createvalue.org. So, John, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Peter.
In the book, Becoming the Change, you discuss using an A3 as a personal development process, which is, for most people, probably a pretty unique concept. Describe how this works for us.
Well, first of all, let's step back and understand what an A3 is, right? So usually we think of A3 thinking really related to business processes, whether it's strategy or problem solving. That's what we've traditionally thought of when we pull out an A3. But what we found now over the years, and what we write about in Becoming the Change, is that it can be a powerful personal development tool. So really about personal Kaizen. And if we think about that, it makes sense. I mean, what is the background and current state of your leadership actions and behaviors, right? So if we think about it from an A3 perspective, let's figure out what that is. What are the things that you're doing that really work? What are the things that you're doing that maybe shut your team down? Why is it important now to actually start thinking about the leadership activities and behaviors that you exhibit? And what's your opportunity, right? We usually think about A3 as a problem solving or a strategic solving tool, but actually what's the opportunity rather than a problem that you have as a leader to become more effective, become a better leader? And then why do the things that you do now exist? So as we go into the analysis section of the A3, we want to understand why the behaviors that you're exhibiting now exist, both positive and the ones that you want to improve on. So this isn't just about, I'm a bad leader and I got to get better. It's, what are the things I do really well? How can I make those front and center? And then what are the things that I need to shore up a little bit on? And then on the right-hand side of the A3, what experiments might you try? What types of things? So examples that I've seen in the past are, I need to rebuild some standard work, right? So what is my standard work going to look like as it relates to my leadership behaviors? Then develop the plan, so here it is. Over the next 6 months, I'm going to try these 3 things. And then I'm going to follow up with that. I'm going to ask people how I'm doing. I'm going to maybe find a buddy that can give me some feedback. I'm going to maybe have a coach that can help me get some feedback. And then we'll start the cycle again. So using A3 thinking, which is what I've just walked through, can be done with your personal development as well as organizational problems.
It sounds foundationally the personal A3, you own it. You have to really embody it. And you talked a little bit about it. How are some of the best ways to get feedback on how you're doing with your experiment you're trying with your personal Kaizen?
I think this is one of the most difficult things, actually, frankly, because you can go to your subordinates and ask them how you're doing, but are you really going to get, I mean, unless you have a tremendously trusting relationship with people, and some people do, it's going to be difficult for those folks to give you honest feedback. So I think you do in this situation, the best thing to do is to really have a coach, whether it's external or internal. It's up to you. Again, internal coaches have difficulty with some of the power differences. So if you're the CEO or the senior vice president, to expect your internal coach to tell you that you have a lot of improvement to make, that's kind of difficult. I think the best way that I've seen this work is that you have an external coach, which is observing you at the Gemba or observing you in your meetings or observing you where you do your work, and then is really able to give you honest feedback. Obviously, you can also, I think, self-reflect is a great way to have feedback, because you can walk into a room and really, you can read the room, you can tell how people are reacting to you, reacting to your maybe change in some things that you're doing, and in some cases they'll give you unsolicited feedback. If things are really getting better, people are going to tell you that. If they're getting better. If they're not getting better, they're not going to tell you that. So I think some kind of self-reflection mechanism is important, as well as a external reflection process.
Really, a lot of honesty and trust is involved, but where do leaders struggle the most in changing their behavior?
I think it depends on what you're working on. We've written a lot about the 5 important behavioral traits that are necessary to build a culture of improvement, a culture of excellence, including willingness, which means, are you self-reflecting? So do you have a process for that? Leading with humility, meaning, do you go to the Gemba and ask open-ended questions? Curiosity, do you really care about what's going on in the organization? Can you go actually empathetically listen to people, what they're telling you? Are you using A3 thinking as you're out and about at the Gemba or otherwise, or are you just jumping to solutions, right? So beginning to ask really good open-ended what, how questions, not who, why questions. Another one of the key traits is perseverance. So do you have a buddy? Do you have some way of getting feedback? Do you have a coach? And then finding leader standard work, which is really about, what is it in my day that I'm going to do that adds value to the customers? I think what I've heard from CEOs, and I've worked with many of them around the world, is this leader standard work thing and asking good questions seem to be the 2 areas that a lot of people spend a lot of time learning about. But I do think it depends on where you're at in your own leadership maturation. But leader standard work, when I was CEO, what my teacher taught me was, or my coach taught me was, look at my calendar next week and decide, is there anything on my calendar in the next week that's going to add value to my patients? And when I looked at my calendar and saw that 0 of my meetings, 0 of my activities was actually going to add value, it really was a powerful way to understand what leader standard work is. And that then began my journey of saying, okay, at least once a week, I'm going to go to the Gemba and I'm going to understand what's going on and understand the barriers that my staff are facing to manage the care of our patients. That was just one step, but I think, for me, and I think for many, it's managing that calendar. There is no standard work for that, and that's a really important activity.
You've touched on time, and I imagine a lot of the people listening think about their busy schedule, and you've kind of talked about how do you look at that. How much time should you be spending on a personal A3, and In addition, how often should it be updated?
I think that the thing that we need to do first is really spend some time learning what a personal A3 actually is. So I've coached a lot of people on personal A3, and what I find is that they always fall back on this is an organizational problem that we're trying to solve. So anything related to me is really about the organization. And what we have to break through in this thinking is it's actually about you. It's not about the organization. So what we have to do is step back and really look at this from the standpoint of what is it that I want to do or I need to do differently, or what is the experiment I want to run, not, what is the experiment the organization needs to run. So that's the first step. We really have to create the context that this is about me. It's not about the organization. And that's a real hard paradigm to break, because most of us A3 thinkers have always thought about the organization as, first. But now we got to step back and change our paradigm about A3. That I think once you've gone through, 4, 5, 6 revisions, especially that left side of, what is it, what's the background and current state of my existing leadership style and activity? What is my opportunity to really be a better leader? Why do I lead the way I lead today? Once we've spent significant amount of time on that side of the left side of the A3, and we've gotten feedback and we've gotten some, collected information about that, then we can run some experiments. And I think those experiments are going to take some, all of a sudden, you're improved. This takes weeks, and I would say that you probably need to run those personal experiments for 3 months maybe, and or about that. I mean, because it takes that long, first of all, for you to feel comfortable in doing something differently, but you also need to give it some time to sink in with the people that you're working with, because the people you're working with are going to say, well, what happened to John? All of a sudden he's changed. Well, it must be the flavor of the month. Now he read a new book and now he's going to act differently. So we have to give it time if we're going to make changes, like I did when I said I'm going to go to the Gemba once a week. We have to give the people, the staff members, time to realize that what I'm doing is different than what I've done in the past. And the other thing I'd suggest is you be honest about that. It's like, listen, I'm going to try some things, folks, because I think that there's some things that I can do better, and I'm going to try some things. And please feel free to give me feedback. So that takes some time, and I would say 3 to 4 months is the time frame. Then you want to go back to the A3 again after you've collected the information about how this experiment, whatever you did to change your own leadership behavior, worked, and now you're going to create another revision of this. So that would be my thought about time frame. This isn't a week or two. This is months to really begin to create that personal change.
You talked about being honest and transparent about the fact that you're trying some things. Do leaders share their personal A3 with their peers, their subordinates, their bosses at a full transparency?
Yeah, I think it's important to realize that personal development A3 is not a 360, type of organizational development process. So, what I like to think of it as is that we can all become better leaders if we share how we're doing with each other. That, I think, is the best way for us all to become better leaders, because each of us has different skills and different strengths and different opportunities. So if we go into this with the idea that we're going to do this together, I have things that I'm going to work on. You have things that you're going to work on. And if we share back and forth, maybe we can help each other. So, to the question of should we share our personal A3, I do think that's personal. It's a personal decision. But what I have seen is that leaders that do that, and they do it in a way that's not, I've got the answer and you're going to do what I say. They do it in a way that we're going to learn together about how we can become better leaders. That is very powerful. And I think that the leaders that I've observed do that have really, I'd say, more quickly moved to the leadership behaviors that truly build a culture of improvement. But again, it depends on the culture of the organization, how transparent people have been, how comfortable they are. But I think as a leader, if you're comfortable with, creating this environment where you and the people that report to you or your peers can work together in this kind of a format, it becomes a very positive thing rather than, you've got to fix these three things because you're terrible at this. And, it's like, no, now it's becoming, how do we run some experiments to actually build a more effective leadership style, realizing that what we're all trying to do is build organizational excellence in everything we do.
Well, and it sounds like if the organization is open to it, this becomes cultural. And you've talked to us about that in other podcasts, how it's really about the culture and it's not just the tool of the month, as you mentioned.
That's right. This is about, culture is about behaviors. And so the culture changes when behaviors change.
John, are there any other final thoughts you want to share with our listeners?
I would just suggest that you try an experiment. Pull out the A3, and instead of having a problem statement, have it be an opportunity statement. Spend some time on the left side of that A3 about your own leadership activities and behaviors, and learn about yourself. And I think the whole idea of personal Kaizen, lean or organizational excellence is a social technical system. So we have a responsibility not only to learn the technical aspects of this method, but also to learn the social activities required. And so I think that's where the power of this thinking really is important. So I'd suggest try it. If you have questions, call us, read the book, Becoming the Change, talk to others that have done it, and we can connect you with people if that's something you want to try. So I wish you luck.
John, thank you as always for joining us today.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure and informative to have you join our podcast. And we want to thank you all for listening. Visit createvalue.org to learn more about the Lean Healthcare Transformation Summit on June 23rd and 24th. All summit attendees will receive a complimentary copy of Becoming the Change by John Toussaint and Kim Barnes. Stay tuned for more episodes designed to help healthcare leaders support their organizations on a journey to organizational excellence.
Thank you for listening. Visit createvalue.org/thelens to learn more about how catalysis can inspire you to accelerate change in your organization.